What's on the Show, sponsored by NFM.
Don't worry, guys, I won't go long. I don't want to get a penalty for delay of show. All right,
Doubtful.
the Stars are on the wrong end of a 2-1 series deficit, the Edmonton Oilers, and penalties are a primary storyline. How many have been called, which ones weren't called, which ones weren't severe enough. Plus, what can the Stars do to turn things around on the road in these playoffs? A lot to dive into there. And it's the return of which is more likely with a focus on the future of professional athletes. Mike, that's what's on the show. Now, will we get called for too many men on the show?
Oh,
you're welcome.
How many puns did he work into that?
You're going to have to rewatch it to find them. That's all I'm saying.
Owen Newkirk from All City Dallas is like, do I have to do a half an hour of television coming up? Owen, thank you so much for being with us.
Putting up with us.
Dealing, buddy.
Sure.
Putting up with one half of this screen, maybe.
Hang on a sec. Come on.
Owen, what did you think of today's game, top to bottom? Obviously a 6-1 loss. It doesn't feel like the game was probably played to a 6-1 score, but how do you evaluate what was done on the ice and where the Stars stand now?
Yeah, there's two things that you said that are very true. One, Mike, you're absolutely right. That was way too many puns. Two,
whatever.
Their problem, I appreciate you, Andrew, and I support you being you, so keep doing it.
Thank you.
On a serious note, I think Mike's right. I think that this should be the first legitimately nervous moment. But it doesn't mean this is panic time, right? Because, yes, Dallas lost Game 3. Yes, the Stars are now down 2-1 in the series. But just like Edmonton won Game 2 after losing the first game in Dallas, the Stars can do the same thing and not only get right back on serve, but reclaim home ice advantage. So it's certainly not dire. That being said, this is the first time the Stars have lost back-to-back games in this postseason run. And that's a little concerning because in the last 2 games, they've managed to score exactly 1 goal. And that, I think, is something that has to be rectified in a hurry if they want to get back to level ground in this series.
So, Owen, the reason why they even have any goals in this series, I think you could argue, would be the power play, specifically the 5-goal outburst they had in Game 1. And I know all of those goals didn't come on the power play, but the momentum-shifting ones did. Obviously, penalties have been a huge storyline. What can we make of how, not even inconsistent, but just odd, some of the no calls, some of the decision-makings from a non-major penalty in the third period of Game 2? What can we expect moving forward here? Because it seems like in classic NHL fashion, we called too many penalties in Game 1, and now we're going to be fine-tuning which ones we're going to call moving forward here.
Well, and in fact, in Game 2, it reversed the other direction, where Edmonton had 5 power plays, 4 of which I thought were completely obvious penalties against the Stars. The first one, which actually led to that go-ahead first goal in Game 2, came because of a Mikael Granlund boarding call that I thought was a bit soft. Troy Stetcher looked like he turned at the last second. Okay, sometimes those calls don't go your way. Today, it had to do with a disputed puck over the glass call that was not made against Brett Kulak of the Edmonton Oilers. And then they scored 2 goals in 36 seconds shortly thereafter. I said this on our DLS show today, and I will reiterate it here because I think it bears repeating. You can't play player and referee. You have to focus on your job. We all do it. We all get very competitive and think that the officials are out to get us or they make it back. There are legitimately some missed or bad decisions. We are human after all. But what they really need to do is worry about the next play. And there are going to be times in playoff situations, and even within the same series or within the same game, where teams are going to disagree with calls. Remember the Colorado series? There were a couple of those on both sides where they weren't very happy with that. So the Roope Hintz issue from Game 2 was a big one, obviously, because Hintz did not play in Game 3 this afternoon. And that's concerning because obviously he's injured, and will he be able to play the next one? We don't know yet. He did take the warm-up today, but he did not play. And that's a big deal, especially because a lot of people felt that even though they were trailing in Game 2, that a major against Darnell Nurse on that one might have been a different outcome.
I was going to say, we've seen comebacks on a major penalty before. Joe Pavelski was part of one, technically speaking, a couple of years back. So
it was interesting to see, because to your point about Hintz, Owen, we all watched him skate before the game. And again, it wasn't for very long. He went up the tunnel early, didn't take part in line rushes. Like, this was not a complete warm-up. This was, in a lot of ways, because it's an early game, because there was no morning skate, this was kind of like your true game time decision rather than, oh, they really know at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the day, and they're just waiting to tell everybody until 7 o'clock. This was really, we need to see him on the ice and see what he can do. But we all saw that and thought, okay, Hintz is kind of close. And then Pete DeBoer says after the game he didn't feel like he was close at all. He said if he was close, he would have played. I thought that comment was interesting. I mean, it's hockey. There's obfuscation all the time, so that may have been all this was. This may have just been subterfuge. But I did find it interesting that he characterized it in that way after the game, because when I saw him take the pregame skate today, I thought, okay, he'll probably at least play game 4 then. Doesn't feel quite as much of a lock now.
Yeah, I agree, and I also appreciate your verbosity as well. Those are some heavyweight words that I'm very much in agreement of. So
sorry.
Let's go with
puns over here,
Don't
verbosity
apologize.
over there. That's all I'm saying.
We're going to tease Andrew about puns, but we're going to celebrate vocabulary. And
That's right.
Double standard. Double standard.
I appreciate the double standard.
Understood, and I accept full marks on that.
Is this Owen Newkirk doing marriage counseling right
no.
now? Sorry, Owen.
Don't even go with it. No.
I am going to say this. There were a lot of Edmonton Oilers fans, especially on our favorite social media platforms, that felt that maybe Roope Hintz was doing a bit of a sell job at the end of Game 2 because he was helped off, did not return, and maybe there's a bit of a modicum of truth there of, hey, you're down 3-0 in the third period. If you don't return in this one, maybe it looks a little bit worse for the sake of the league maybe deciding on something, whether it's supplementary discipline or not, for Nurse, which they did not. So that's a possibility. But Mike was absolutely right. We rarely have actual game time decisions. They just say that because it's a game time decision as far as for everyone else to find out. But this one, he really was testing it out, as evidenced by the fact that he didn't play. And so you have your number one center, your top line center, not playing and injured because of that incident. Whether it was deserving of a suspension or not is kind of superfluous, Mike. But what really is important is the fact that that's a concern because, I mean, while they have a lot of depth, when you lose one of your guys on your top line, that's a big issue.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm just getting over the marriage counseling part of this, and I feel like I need to ask Owen, or ask Mike specifically, is there anything that I've said recently that has gotten on your case? And realistically, yeah, there was. We just had an argument about, 4 hours ago, talking about process and results, and we will get into that.
Yeah, let's do that.
When we come back on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show.
After the interlude.
Stay with us. The question that Mike and I got into this week, do you think that the Stars were on their A game after the 2-0 deficit? In other words, did they dominate that game, and how much can you take that moving forward? Because they need that again in Game 4 if they're going to pull out a win this time.
I think they dominated the second period. I don't know that they necessarily dominated the entirety of the rest of the game, but I certainly feel like they dominated the second period. And what led us down this path, it is if any of you guys subscribe to Money Puck, they have a simulator that runs the game that we have seen thus far through 1,000 simulations and spits out a number the Stars would win X number of times. When I did it, it was at 75% of that game. Play that game 1,000 times, Stars win 75%. I saw Taylor Baird from NHL.com shared a similar graphic, same exact concept. When she snipped the screenshot, it was at 81% of the time. There's a lot of data here to suggest they played really well today, but didn't get any breaks whatsoever. Oh, and ultimately what matters here, and I know the argument that's coming from Andrew here is what pucks get in the back of the net. And yes, ultimately that's how this game is determined. But what did you make of the game that we saw on the ice and how this actually played out?
Yeah, Mike, you're right. The numbers certainly back that up, meaning they had more chances, they had more quality chances, they had more high danger chances. They had a lot of the metrics that you would suggest would be outplay the Edmonton Oilers. The problem is that they didn't outscore the Edmonton Oilers, and that is the object of the game. Andrew, I'm not trying to steal your thunder here because I know where it's going.
Go for it. Go ahead.
This is one of those games where in the regular season, because it's a 1 of 82, the coach would come out and say, boy, if we play like that, we're going to win a lot of hockey games and a lot more than we lose. The problem is in a best of 7 playoff series, let alone the Western Conference Final. You can't really do that. And one of the things that I do think is very important to point out is that results matter only in wins versus losses. Style points, while nice for fans, do not matter, because what matters? 4 wins in a series. So you can win 1-0 in triple overtime. You can win 8-6. You can dominate and win 9-0. It counts as 1 win, and that's what matters. So this is the first time the Stars haven't rebounded with a win following a playoff loss in the playoffs this year. They've been, the first 4 times they did it, every time they won, and they won convincingly with some pretty one-sided score lines. This time didn't happen, but Edmonton is also an excellent hockey team that was 1 win away from winning the Stanley Cup last year. And remember, the Stars pushed them to 6 games last year. I think, as I picked this at the beginning of the series on our DLS show, Stars in 7. I'm sticking to that. I'll get more nervous if they don't win Game 4, though.
100%. Now, my part of this boils down to the second and third period reminded me so much of Game 6 last year. Down 2-0, Stars dominating possession, get a goal late, end up on the wrong side of the decision. And what really frustrates me about this kind of hockey is the discrepancy usually boils down to high-end talent. Connor McDavid's on one side, Hyman was on his game today, they were counters on the other side. You see it in hockey regularly. Shots don't matter. To me, they're like yards in the NFL. It's an empty calorie stat. What matters are touchdowns, and what matters are turnovers. It's a very similar story to me in this game where Edmonton capitalized when they needed to and the Stars didn't. And what's scary about that is I feel like more often than not, I'm getting the best out of Edmonton's best players. And I think the best example right now is Wyatt Johnston, who we have avoided talking about for the better part of the last month because there have been so many other storylines with this team, but now it's hard not to talk about him because it seems like him and that line that he was on have failed to produce so far, Owen.
Well, in this case, Mike, I know I've shown a little bit of favoritism to your direction, and deservedly so. I'm going to side with Andrew on this one. So here we are. Point to Andrew.
He really did just a award of victory. Damn, man. I don't know what to do with that.
In honor of Around the Horn, that's what's going on here. pour one out.
But, yeah, to your point, yes, there are some things, and I think context is a huge important factor, especially when you start talking about analytics. And I highly support what Mike was talking about the money puck analytics of if you play this way, you win more than you lose. Yeah, sure. However, part of how this game was played was because of the fact that Edmonton got the lead. 2 quick goals in 36 seconds, and then Dallas was forced to chase the game. Now, they were utterly dominant in the second period, and they had, I believe by my tracking, 8 high-danger grade A scoring chances, of which they scored 1 goal. And that's the problem. And that's where Andrew's going with, if I may be so bold as to suggest that I know what your point is the fact that they have to capitalize. It's not good enough just to create chances. You have to score, because we're in the put-up part of the season. It's not of the process, the style. You have to get results. Now, the good news is this was Game 3, not Game 6 or 7, and so you have some leeway, but that leeway does get shorter each time you lose a game in a series.
I will say one other point on all of this. Their own coaching staff was seeing a lot of what I'm talking about, because they changed up their lines going into the third period despite being up 3-1. So there was more data there to suggest that there was a lot of things going Dallas's way. But ultimately what this boils down to me is they have to stop playing from behind. It worked in the first 2 series to fall behind 1-0. It wasn't a big deal. You can't do that against this team, because they have to be able to play aggressively, but they have to still stay connected on the back end. This team, to your guys' point about the talent that they have with McDavid and Draisaitl and Bouchard, I mean, they with Hyman, they are ridiculously talented, and they can turn any situation into a 3-on-2 in a blink. Dallas has to be able to stay more connected. When they get down 1-0, they start taking chances like we saw Thomas Harley do that led to the goal that made it 2-0 in favor of Edmonton early on in this game. If Dallas can get the first goal in a game, it can make a huge difference in the entire series. I
was going to say that the game we've talked about a lot boils down to 36 seconds. We can try and talk all the way around it. It's the missed penalty, and it's 2 goals quickly after. All right, we got a lot left to get into. Stay with us. Next up, which is more likely? We're talking about the future of professional sports. Stay with us.